It's the 119th edition of the US Open. There's been quite a few, but unfortunately this year it's a bit different given that we're actually having this in June. It's normally much earlier in the year. Now it's taking place in Pebble Beach Golf Club, and you are most welcome to today's broadcast if you're following us on Facebook, Twitter, Periscope, YouTube, or listening to us on the podcast with your headphones in. Another man with the headphones in is Matchbook's Jesse May. Jesse, you've turned down numerous invitations to the Pebble Beach Pro-Am, so we can't really get your insight on the course, but you can tell us what's going on at Matchbook this week.
That's right. I mean, though, Pebble Beach is it is the classic course, isn't it? I mean, I know Brad Allen hates course form, but I would imagine that almost every player in the field has some serious history at Pebble Beach. It's so iconic. At Matchbook, we are got a bunch of markets as usual. I have that same offer with the 10%. For every stroke your golfer wins by. So that would have been great last week. Was it last week when McIlroy beat the field by 54 shots? Yeah. I mean, it's amazing, isn't it? Like all of a sudden now it's all McIlroy. He wasn't even on our lips last time, and now he's one of the favorites.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, I mean, we got top 5, top 10. Honestly, there's been 4.5 million matched up on the outright already. The golf, I would say, since the Masters. Golf is in a new league at Matchbook. There's a lot of liquidity Thursday through Sunday between rounds. The matchups are very deep right now. I'm sure Brad Allen, who usually just wipes out prices. I mean, he just wants everything he can get. Even he might have found enough for some of the matchbooks at Matchbook.
Do never underestimate Brad Allen's capacity to have 1,700 matchup.
Oh no, he's the guy. He's like, let me introduce you to Mr. Moore. He doesn't care how much if it's a good offer,
Right, let's go talk about the course first of all, because Ollie, I'll be honest, Pebble Beach, as picturesque as it is, it's one of those tournaments early on in the year that I absolutely have no interest in watching because of the Pro-Am element. But I think anyone that's coming in thinking that this is going to be very similar to the tournament early on in the year is got a massive shock here.
Yeah, you're exactly right, Sully. So the kind of most obvious difference between the two events is that when they play the AT&T Pro-Am, it's played as a par 72, and this week the events can be played as a par 71. And the setup is going to be markedly different as well. So, it's got the very usual traditional US Open setup of, huge, lush, rough surrounding very narrow fairways, also huge amounts of rough around the greens, protecting it alongside the bunkering that's already there in the contouring of the course. And also a little bit of wind, being a linksy track. We've got the protection of the wind as well this week. And the other kind of classic Pebble Beach elements of blind tee shots, elevated tee shots, short holes. We've got the shortest hole on the whole of the PGA Tour in the par 3 7th. I think it's only 109 yards. So the players have got all the looks that they're going to get this week. And usually with a short course you can just put down bombers and assume they're going to have a massive advantage, but it's not going to be as easy as that. We're going to be looking for someone who's a little bit more strategic off the tee, someone who's a bit more balanced, more a total driving guy than just your bomb it and gouge it, and that is kind of played into by the rough that surrounds the fairways. But for me, this is much more of a second shot golf course. I want to be with a player whose strokes gained approach is quite a key stat, because the greens are so small. So the greens here are the smallest they play on tour every season. They're approximately half the average size of PGA Tour greens, so very, very small targets, and a lot of players are going to be missing fairways. So even the most accurate of drivers are probably ones that we're not going to want to side with because they're going to miss their fair share. So that second shot is going to be all important. And also because the greens are very small, we're going to be missing a lot of greens as well. So we want people that are able to scramble well and get up and down from around the greens. So scrambling is a key stat for me also. The other thing that I always love to mention is the grass types, and we're back to our old friend Poranua because we're on the West Coast, back to California. So excited to be with some putters who have either grown up in the West Coast and played a lot on Poranua down the years, or people that have produced good performances on those on that grass type previously.
But Ali, doesn't the U.S. Open have this weird history of strange putting? I mean, the really I don't know, let's say acute angles and stimp meters and stuff. Is that kind of gone out of fashion with the U.S. Open now?
Oh, absolutely not. You know, you just have to look back to last year when Phil Mickelson chased his ball off the green and decided to stop it while it was still rolling and bashed it back so it didn't go 25 foot past. So, you know, that's still very much one of the tricks up the USGA sleeve. We'll see the same this week. The number of 3 putts that we'll see from sort of 5, 6, 7 feet will be exponentially more than your average PGA Tour event, and it's always quite good fun for us as viewers watching golfers struggle in the same way that we do when we play the game, or at least I do when I play anyways.
And the last time this was here in 2010, Graham McDowell won with level par, so we could have that. I do want to give you one quick quote on this one. Ollie did a pretty extensive piece for insights.matchbook.com. It is a test, and I quote, a test that will have the best of players begging for submission on Sunday. So a nice little, MMA reference there from Ollie Noonan. Jesse, I'll come back to you. What's where the outright markets? We talked about Rory McIlroy, obviously. He was outright favourite at 10.0. Early on Monday morning, but I think that's how he's after drifting very slightly.
He is. Well, DJ and him are co-favorites. You know, so Rory is in about the 9.5 to 1 mark. DJ and DJ was a big plunge for us, if I'm not mistaken, in the PGA Tour. And I'm not sure what his form is now. We've got Koepka there, obviously, and then Tiger Woods at 13.5 to 1. Now, Matchbook is best price on a bunch of players when I'm looking on Odds Checker. Best price DJ, best price Tiger, best price Patrick Cantlay, who I know we've been after in the past, and also best price Jordan Spieth. I think we're going to stay away from that one.
I love the way you're after learning how to say Brooks Koepka. He only had to win the PGA Championship in the last 2 majors to actually win it.
That's true. On his 4th major, I decided to learn his name. Yeah, man, isn't he awesome? He's cool.
He is fantastic. Brad Allen, I'll come to you first. I get the sense from having chatted in the last day or two that you're going to be taking on the first 3 or 4 here in the betting.
Yes. I see the course quite similarly to Ollie, and it feels like the driver's going to be taken out of the big boys' hands somewhat. You know, they're probably going to hit it on 6, 7 holes. Yeah, I think even DJ's average driving distance around here is something like 250 yards because you've got to hit your spots on the golf course, and then it is all about that second shot, as Ollie said. So I do feel like it takes away the biggest weapon of those top 3 of McIlroy, Brooks, and DJ. So we'll get to that a bit more in the matchups later. Or we'll be looking to take all 3 of them on. But in the outright, the one I like most near the top of the market is Justin Thomas. Obviously, there's some doubt. I think the reason his price is 30-ish. You probably get a little bit bigger on the exchange. Is this wrist injury where he withdrew? He missed a few tournaments. He's been back 2 tournaments now. Missed the cut of the first one again. Which put the worries on people. But then last week, he was actually second in the field behind only McIlroy, strokes gained tee to green. He got about 9.6. So it looked to me like he was fully back. Gaining nearly 10 strokes on the field. It looks to me like he's right there. Over the last 50 rounds, he's the only player in the field in the top 10 in strokes gained approach and strokes gained around the green. Pretty much 2 of the key stats that Ollie's identified, and I agree with. So yeah, I think he's just 5 points too big.
33.0 currently, not a bad price for Justin Thomas. Ollie, give me your top outright selection. I think if you listened or actually read your preview on insights.matchbook.com, your headline gives it away. Patrick the Twart Brooks. Easy enough one.
Yeah, absolutely. So just before I start that one, just to add to Brad, I think I'm not on Justin Thomas myself, but I noticed that he was actually top 10 in every single strokes game stat last week. Aside from putting, and putting is definitely the most random one. So if he repeats that sort of performance, then he's going to go very close. But I'm siding with Patrick Cantlay this week. He is probably the most informed golfer in the world. We saw him win last time out at the Memorial, and Data Golf, which is a site that both Brad and I like to have a look at. They put a great column together each week called Inside the Numbers, and they said that Patrick Cantlay's performance at the Memorial was 0.09. It gave him a 0.097% chance, or a 97% chance of winning. I'll put it that way, based on all tournaments going back to 2004. So ultimately, it was one of the most elite performances over the last 15 years.
Ollie, I mean, you and Brad, I think both have been tipping him up several times last 4 or 5 months. Did you have him at the Memorial? What price was he? Did you manage to get get cashed in at all?
So I didn't. I actually backed him very small just before the final day at 6-1, with 54 holes to go. So thin brag after time, whatever you want to call it. But one of the things that again that Data Golf site has identified is that over the last 20 rounds in true strokes gained, he actually leads the world. He's gaining 3.24 strokes per round against every competitor. So that is truly world class and truly elite. And you just have to look at his form heading into this week to understand how good a golfer he is right now. As I said, he won last time out. He was third at the PGA Championship, behind only Brooks and DJ, who are above him in the market here. He was third before that at the Heritage, and of course he led at Augusta with 3 holes to go as well. So he is a fantastic player, and he grew up in the West Coast as well. He grew up in Long Beach, just down the road from here, so he's got all the local ties and all the local knowledge, and he's been practicing at Pebble Beach for the last couple of weeks as well. He's the one who put the now traditional video out on social media this week to show the length of the rough around the fairways and the greens. So, it fell to him on this occasion. And, I just feel that his game is perfectly suited to this. He's not your traditional bomber. He's very much more strategic, a little bit slow, takes his time to make sure he's hitting his right spots, as Brad said. And I think he's entitled to be a few points shorter than he is as well. I'd have him more towards the 16-1 mark than the 12-1 mark.
Talk to me about the price there, Ollie, because I'm looking here. He's 5th favourite at 22.0 currently. I mean,
it's pretty short from where he's been the last couple of months. That's for sure. Yeah,
absolutely. I think the golf world traditionally takes a little bit of time to cotton on to its world beaters. You do get a couple of people that come out of the traps thinking about the likes of John Rahm, for example, who they shorten up very, very quickly. But Patrick Cantley's not been that. I think because of the style of his game, he's not that sort of flashy name that people have cottoned onto so quick. And it's only been in the last couple of events where people have started to take notice. Seemingly, he was almost double the price for the PGA Championship, and of course he went very close there, albeit Brooks blew the field away. But it feels like he's now being priced up as one of the elites in the field, which he of course is based on the stats over the last 6 weeks or so.
Yeah, he absolutely deserves to be there. Brad Allen, I'll come back to you. Anyone else you're looking to take a flyer at a bigger price? I obviously get the sense that JT is your biggest bet, but I think you were talking about Henrik Stenson and Webb Simpson earlier in the week.
Yeah.
Stenson, hold it. Stenson was the guy with 3 broken legs from our last podcast. But I guess the fact that he can't use the driver is going to be huge for him right now.
Yeah, so Stenson, he's not going to pop up in your data golf models, but he does seem like the perfect fit here. He's going to pop his 3-wood onto the fairway. And as we say, second shot golf course, where over the last 50 rounds, Stenson leads the entire field in strokes gained approach. So what I think is interesting, so the last time this was played here in 2010, the average GIR for the field, it was around 52%. Stenson actually led the entire field at about 80%, but then he was crap with his irons, and he hit about 50%. Oh, sorry, I've mucked this up. So the fairways hit, the field hit about 50%, and Stenson was hit about 80%. But then he was awful actually getting onto the green, where he was down to 50%. So basically his irons let him down. So this week again, we know he can hit his 3-wood and hit those fairways, but now going into this event, his irons are absolutely bang on fire. And then when you look through kind of all the correlation courses, so these less than driver courses, Stenson's kind of in the top 10 there. You look at links form, Stenson's in the top 10 there. We know he's won an Open and this kind of thing. So I just think he's the perfect fit for the course, and you can probably get 100-1 on the exchange right now, and we know he's a proven winner, so we could see him trading shorter, I think.
Well, that's the key thing, because if he does trade a fair bit shorter, he can lay out of your position. Ollie Noonan, I'll come back to you for a second, because one of the guys you wanted to talk about this week was 300 plus to 1. He's now 281.0. Still a bit of value, I would suggest, considering most of the sportsbook 125.0. Emiliano Grillo.
Yeah, I think he's just trending in the right direction, and he's another one who is an absolute elite ball striker, whose short game just lets him down massively. And I mentioned it a few moments ago. The putting is the part where there is the most randomness. you're going to have weeks where you're on with the putter and weeks where you're simply not. Unfortunately for Guido, he has more weeks where he's not on with the putter, but he actually gained strokes on the field putting last week at the Canadian Open, where he finished in the top 10, which was his first time in 5 events gaining strokes with the flat stick. He's actually someone who ranks really highly in strokes gained approach, so he's 12th on tour this year. And interestingly, he's picked up his finishing position in each of the last 6 events is improved week on week. As I said, culminating with that top 10 last time out last week. And he's someone, if you look at his baseline career figures for strokes gained, he's actually at a best ever ranking. He's gaining 1.2 strokes on the field per round right now. And if he can just putt a little bit above average, then he's going to give himself a really good chance. And I think getting odds of around about 300, you can't really go wrong for a guy like that. It certainly wouldn't be out of the realms of possibility for him to contend. But I particularly like him in some of the sub-markets. I think he's an interesting runner, definitely in top 10 and top 20 markets. And I think also, we have our pre-podcast and video cast WhatsApp group. And I think Brad put him up for potentially top rest of the world. And I think that's an interesting shout as well. So, get with him in the side markets, I'd suggest.
Yeah, I think it's about 35.0 for that. I've said it before, gents, personal bias aside, if you look at these big runners, very similar to the Grand National on the exchange, if you're having your 10 or 20 quid, you're getting so much more value on an exchange in comparison to the sportsbook. Jesse May, back me up. As you just look at the odds checker grid right now, and it's insane.
It's crazy. Now, the fact that you can trade out or trade in play, it's kind of the big thing. And I'm not saying you have to, but with the long shots, and I don't know what the exact strategy is, you can get yourself in a great position if they're even anywhere in contention on a Friday or Saturday. Do you guys have any tips, Brad or Ollie, for for me, common sense is I cash half of it out type of thing. Get myself in the green on both sides once the price comes in on a Friday or Saturday. Is that your plan?
I'm generally I'm more of a better than a trader. I just let it ride. Unless I'm obviously checking. I'm looking each day at the strokes gained
with a 300 to 1 shot. Serious?
Generally, yeah. But it's cost me a lot this year, to be honest. So I've had plenty going into the final day trading at 4 or 5 to 1, and I just think how often you get the chances, just let it go.
So I mean, from an adrenaline point of view, you're kind of all set. But
as I said, my expertise, if anything, is betting. I'm not a golf trader, and if I'm trading out at 4 to 1, I'm not. Not necessarily.
I totally get it. You feel like that second bet is likely to be a bad bet, even though it's hedging your position. I totally get it.
And if you've got if the exchange, if the market's making it 4 to 1 shot, just let it go. Let it run. But unless, I suppose the caveat would be, keep an eye on how the actual performance is being, how they've got into contention. If they're doing it with approach and ball striking, that's a bit more sustainable round to round. Whereas if they've just hold like 4 40-foot putts, they're probably not going to keep doing that unless they're Jordan Spieth and they're trying to cost money. Keep an eye on how they're doing it as well.
Some sage advice there from Brad Allen. Let it ride. To hell with this trading out. Let it ride. Brad, I'll stick with you for a second. Let's talk about the tournament matchup, because this is an event, an arena that you absolutely love. And looking at the bets you sent us on our WhatsApp group earlier, the US Open this year is of no change to you.
No, I love it. Especially, I know you boys have switched it to 2% net commission on matchups, which is better. You can basically take the price there is and worry a bit less about posting up. So let's start off with, I'm keen to get against Justin Rose. He's priced like he's still quite elite golfer, but it seems to me he's fallen off a fair bit this year. So you might remember at the start of the year, he switched his irons from TaylorMade to Honma. Probably for commercial.
Excuse me? Honma,
yeah. So 23 starts in 2018, 15 top 10s, 1 miscut, and only twice outside the top 25. So just very good, just banging in top 10s in 2/3 of his starts. 10 starts in 2019, only 4 top 10s, 2 missed cuts, so already double missed cuts in half the events, and then four finishes outside the top 25, so double outside the 25 as well. So it's just fallen off all over the place. In the 2 key metrics we've identified, he's 20th in the field in strokes gained approach, so again not elite, and then 46th in around the green, which is going to be important with how small these greens are. So keen to get against him, and I've done it with just about everyone in that he's matched up against. Thomas, Scott, Matsuyama are all good ones, I think, and Tiger Woods, though you have to pay a bit of juice. But Scott, Matsuyama, these are odds against, and I think they should be clear favourites in the numbers I'm looking at.
Can I ask a quick question there, Brad? Because I feel like we had this situation with Jordan Spieth. In the last one, we have it quite often where you rightly so feel like a player is so mispriced that you want to just get against him in a lot of places. And I'm kind of curious as to whether overall you think it is better. Like, let's say you can find 7 or 8 matchups to actually spread the bet out, go against a guy 7 or 8 times. The downside being, if you priced him wrong, then you just lose all of them. Or if it's better to actually just pick out what you think the best matchup is and just go for one of them. I mean, I'm not sure I'm so clear on it, because I feel like when you feel like one guy is so mispriced, you also have to contend with the fact that you may be missing something when you're that way off the market.
Yes. Now I wouldn't go 7 or 8. So I think currently I've got probably 3 or 4 against Rose. And it does so happen that they are golfers I like. So Thomas, we've kind of gone through. Scott, who I think is a real dark horse. He's another kind of elite approach player. And historically it's always been, he's been held back by his putting. But since they've started leaving his flag in, obviously he's using that kind of long, not anchoring putter, but he's 22nd this year on the tour in putting as well, so he's sticking it very close. He's another good links player, numerous top 5s in the Open, so I think he's got a very good chance to win, so I've gone against him. And then Xander Schauffele I've used against Rose. He's top quality, so 4th in scoring average at the US Open since 2014 is Schauffele. In 9 major starts, he's got 4 top 5 finishes, so he seems to be a bit of a big game player. So those are 3 I would recommend. To answer the broader question, I mean 7 or 8. It's unlikely you're going to find 7 or 8 golfers that are all.
Well, you will with Woods, for instance, right? If you think Woods is wrong, you can match him up everywhere.
I like Woods quite a lot this week, but perhaps we'll let Ollie dig into a few, and then I'll talk about Woods for a bit.
Yeah, Ollie Noonan, what say you, sir? Tournament matchup wise, you're actually opposing Rose as well. Just looking at my notes.
Yeah, I completely agree with Brad. Also, I think the only thing to add there is his third. This is the first time since last February that he's played 3 tournaments in a row without finishing in the top 10. So his game, whilst it's not fallen off the cliff completely, he's still sort of recording top 20 finishes. It's just not where it was, and I think there's a fair part of that which probably is down to the equipment, as Brad was saying. I think for me, that I've got one match bet that I really like this week, and it's more so a guy that I was quite interested in anyways, which is Matt Wallace, being matched up against a guy who I just generally dislike for this week completely, which is Patrick Reed. So let's start with Reed. His game is in an awful place at the moment. So his best finish in the last 7 stroke play events that he's contested is tied for 28th, way back at the Wells Fargo, which is almost 2 months ago now. He's not finished in the top 10 once this calendar year. He's missed 3 cuts in that time. He's generally regarded as being, as Brad said, a bit of a big game player, but he didn't perform particularly well in his defence at the Masters, didn't do particularly well at Sawgrass, and just seems to have sort of lost his game and gone completely off the boil. And on the other end, I quite like Matt Wallace. I think he's a bit of a coming force. He seems to be, in terms of personality, a little bit similar to Reed in some ways. Reminds me a lot of Ian Poulter. He's got a very solid game all in all. There's nothing that stands out in terms of him being excellent, but he's very good at a lot of things. And his recent form is pretty good. He finished 41st in defence of his European Tour title at the Made in Denmark, which wasn't particularly outstanding. But prior to that, he was third at Bethpage in the PGA Tour Championship, which, that is an elite field, and he finished in the podium positions there. And he was tied second at the British Masters prior to that, which was played at Hillside on the northwest coast of England. So the wind was whipping in there in Tommy Fleetwood's local course, which is going to share some parallels to the sort of conditions that they were will be exposed to this week. And his form going back longer than that is decent enough in the US as well. He was tied sixth at Bay Hill just before the Masters. And he was 20th as well at PGA National, which is probably one of the most difficult traditional rotation PGA Tour courses all year as well that the players will play. So I think his base base of current form is much stronger than Reed's. And when I last looked, he was a decent odds against price, and I think he's got every right to be the favourite here, really. So I particularly like that match bet this week.
Yeah. Currently 2.19 to beat Reed. That sounds pretty good. Brad Allen, I'll come back to you. We've talked about the Tiger Woods tax in outright betting, but you seem to like him in a few of the tournament matchups this week.
Yeah, well, you don't seem to be paying the Tiger Woods tax in the matchups. I mean, I'm just looking at bets now. You can get sort of 2.5 against the McIlroys, the Koepkas, and the DJs of the world. And as I've said, so I think those three are being overrated by the market, just given the fact that their greatest weapon, their driving distance and their off the tee game is nullified, not completely, but it will be heavily nullified. Now, Tiger Woods. Now, as I think I've told you recently, I've only ever put one bet on Tiger Woods, and it was in the match play event because of this tax. But so this week, I put together a model on Fantasy National, but for basically a course fit based on the things that I think matter: strokes gain approach, strokes gain around the green, greens in regulation. That's proved very, very important over here. Bit of bogey avoidance because it's going to be tough out there. And Tiger Woods is number one in the field. So, by this model, he fits it perfectly. And if you look at his record around here, not necessarily new form, but he's played 19 rounds at Pebble and he's gaining 4.5 strokes a round. So his course factor, even when we assume that some of that might be noise, it's still the third highest in the field. We're giving him sort of an extra 0.15 strokes per round. So just at the prices of sort of 2.5 plus against these big three, I think he makes a lot of sense to me.
All right, on the Tiger train. Right, I'll go around the room and ask you for your best bet before we get going. Jesse May, give me a best bet. Give me one from the Jesse May household that's going to make us money this weekend.
I think I just heard it, actually. I mean, I love betting on Tiger in these spots where he might actually be good value. And the reason is because of that Tiger tax that Brad said, which is that if you back him pre, or even if you back him when he drifts a little bit in the first round sometime, if he gets a little bit of a run, he closes so quick. And then actually, if you do lay him off, you're probably doing it for a very, very good price. He goes favorite so quickly. Or all he has to do is be near the lead on a Thursday. I mean, so that would be my bet. I think that's the one I'm going to plump for. It'll be fun too.
Yeah, absolutely. Ollie Noonan.
I suppose one of the outrights. I like Grillo to finish in the top 20, and that match bet I talked about with Matt Wallace versus Reed. I think that's a very, very tasty price.
What kind of price are we looking at Grillo on the top 20, Ollie? That seems like a nice one.
Oh, that's a good shout. Probably if we can get around 7-1, I think might be.
Yeah, I think you can get about 6.0, 7.0 at the moment. That sounds good. Brad Allen.
We'll do a couple more quick ones. You might remember at the USPGA we went against Ricky Fowler with 2 bets because of his POA and his bent grass and Bermuda splits, where basically he loses his greatest skill on POA because he's actually not a good putter, where normally he's the best in the world. And we won those 2 matchups. So I've been going against Ricky this week with Thomas and Adam Scott. both around evens. Scott slightly favourite, Thomas slightly odds against, which is a bit mental if you ask me. So yeah, two more good ones there.
Yeah, 117 tournament matchups at Matchbook. So it's been a busy week in the professor's household. For what it's worth, my tournament matchup, I haven't got one of those actually. Xander Schauffele 30.0 at Matchbook is my bet. So he's going to win a major soon, guys. And you know,
that sounds nice. A couple of those outright prices sound really nice right now.
It's a wide open US Open.
I think so.
Absolutely wide open. Thanks for taking the time today, gents. And thank you for listening and watching. And do not forget, if you haven't got a Matchbook account, you want to get involved in one of these big prices, like Miana Grillo at 281.0, you can sign up today at offer.matchbook.com for a £10 risk-free bet. Enjoy the golf and please gamble responsibly at all times.